What up, party people?
Party people. How's it going?
Hey.
I just meditated for 45 minutes before I decided to come alive on this episode of Bobby's Cryptid Corner.
Oh man.
Are you feeling pretty
I
zen?
love that.
You noticed when we were in the green room, I was really quiet. That's because I was just trying to center myself before we went live.
You were exuding that like zen, like.
I do want to
Bingo.
say to everyone in the chat, Bobby, I love your haircut, and I want to just point it out. I want everyone to notice it. It looks good.
You wouldn't even have noticed. I always
Stylish.
wear a hat, but I had a haircut recently. I said, you know what? I'm not going to wear a hat tonight. I'm going to
It
show
looks
up.
good.
fly.
You're looking great. Yeah, you're looking great.
Thanks.
I love the button up.
It looked the first day. This is about 2 days old. The first day, it looked kind of like Kim Jong-un.
A little bit, yeah. I
And
see
then whenever I tried to fix the Kim Jong-un look, it just ended up looking like Adolf Hitler. So I just,
that.
it's finally grown into itself where it's neither of those. So that's
Neither.
How do you?
Sometimes
how do
you
do-
have awkward hair phases. That's why I wear wigs. I've been having an awkward hair phase for the last 10 years.
wow. You need a new barber, new
For
stylist.
real. I haven't cut my hair in since before the pandemic.
Really?
Like when when I used to shave the bottom half of my head. Ever since I stopped doing that, that was like pandemic days.
I
And it's
cut
like
my hair
10 years
full.
ago now. Yeah, Brie, we know.
That was 3 years ago.
I got really stoned the other day,
Yeah,
and I
great.
wanted to cut my hair short, and I stopped myself. But I don't know if you guys can see. I started.
You know what? It's really hot,
You
and so
see
it's a
this?
perfect time to
I
cut
was
the
like,
hair
I
off.
should go short, and I was like really stoned, so I started literally just like.
There's two
then I was
issues
like,
there.
why did you
One,
do
it sounds like you're not in a state of mind to make a good decision. And two, you're also don't
Agreed.
have the dexterity skills or the skills in general to cut your own hair, which would have been fun. I wish you would
What's
have
great about
completed
that
it.
is actually technically Brie does have like a degree in hair.
See, I didn't know that.
Yes.
No, you do.
No, you do. She technically
Why don't you
does.
just why don't you just get high and try to cut your own hair? Do it live
Because
on
I
the
do stupid things like
Yeah, do
that,
live,
where
yeah.
I just like look at like what.
whatever. I didn't know you. I'm sorry, I didn't know you had a beautician's license or
No,
whatever.
Yeah,
it's
for
funny
sure.
though. I was like, I
Certified.
could go like short, like yeah, this would be fine. And it's like it's so hot. And then when I saw it hit the
Saw what
sink,
you
I
were
was
doing,
like,
and you were like, "Oh no!"
fuck me. Really? It's okay. It grows. That's the great thing about hair. I
Now,
don't grow.
Jamie, is this a new wig or have we seen this one before?
No, we've seen this one a million times.
I
That
thought
one
so.
featured in the Totiwaba movie.
Yeah, this one's a lot in the movie a lot. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you were a comic book nerd, but there is a character named Polaris in the X Factor, I believe, that has hair.
Do I look like that
yours.
right now?
Is that green?
X Factor or like the
Yeah.
X.
Yeah,
And I also
That-
think it
is
looks
that an
like the
X-Men
one
run?
girl from
it's like
Scott
a
Pilgrim. What's that
subsidiary of
girl's
X-Men, I
name?
guess.
Where? Yeah, exactly.
The one from Scott Pilgrim. What's her name? With the
Oh yeah.
Ramona Flowers.
Ramona Flowers. There we go.
Ramona Flowers.
Let's give it
I
Ramona Flowers.
always confuse Scott Pilgrim with old Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Same movie. I feel like
I think it's the
I
same.
think I've
thing.
seen that one.
same universe.
I should
It's
watch
just definitely the same universe. It's that
Mhm.
early 2000s like young hipster film that had like
know
maybe
about
four
it?
or five movies.
Zack and Mary Make a Porno. Great movie.
That's about that
Oh, I've
time.
only
Yeah,
seen that one time. I need to
Mama's
rewatch
Boy.
that.
Oh, great movie.
it's so weird to
Pineapple
think about the
Express.
late 2010s as like its own
It's its own thing.
like its own era, and you're like,
It was
what?
an-
That
it was
wasn't
an
that long
era.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's what you need
Yeah.
to do, Bobby. You need to do one episode where you guys watch some great movies from that time.
Mm.
Some of the best horror of the century is from the first decade, I would say. 28 Days
Really?
Later, The Descent.
See?
Later. Oh, you like the
The
zombie?
Born Identity.
Yes, The Bourne.
That's
Attack of
not
the Clones.
horror.
Star Wars Attack of the Clones.
War of the Worlds.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
Bobby,
that remake was pretty good. Yes.
Cloverfield.
Who's here today?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm here today.
To my northwest, I have Captain of the High Seas, Space Pirate, who's our
I am the
captain
Space Pirate. Hello. I'm
of
the captain.
the episode tonight. And then, Bree, we got to work on a variation of your nickname each episode because I like
Just
Goat,
Goat, yeah.
but I feel like we can change it up sometimes. But in this case, you kind of did. We got Goatee.
Goatee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to judge.
Well, I'm not here to change with the weather. Okay, I'm a solid.
From X Factor, and my name is Kurgan O Cryptids, otherwise known as Bobby's Cryptid Corner. Tonight, as mentioned, we have Captain of the High Seas covering the Scottish water horse.
Yeah, it's like a Celtic mythology cryptid.
Question.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Jamie's name tonight is Horse Girl.
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie?
No, but
Horse
I heard
Girl?
it's really good.
Mr. Hands.
But I do want to let everyone know that technically growing up, I was a horse girl.
Okay, listen.
Now,
I'm
what does that
surprised.
mean?
Horse
Like,
Girl.
I
is
South
have
of
horse
south of the
really-
border, that means something completely different.
So like
Like,
I
you
rode
can't move
horses.
past this.
and I
Horse
used to
Girl is
pretend I was
about
a horse.
aliens.
It is about aliens. It is. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's really good.
It's not.
What?
It's trash. Don't see it.
Oh, is it?
Did you have your own horse?
Yeah, I did have my own horse.
That shit's so expensive. I've
And the
looked into
horse's
it.
name was
Well-
Classy. And then the horse
Ooh.
died. And when the horse died is when I stopped riding. But I rode horses until I was literally like 12 years old. I did barrel
Hey, sometimes
racing.
you got to ride a horse.
Like I was a true horse girl.
She's so soft.
Yay!
Yeah.
I played in a lot of cardboard boxes at that age, but hey,
Yeah, I lived
That's
on like a
so funny.
big
I
like
played in the fall.
10-acre property that had like horses, and we would like hang out on the little hill and ride horses and be weird kids and pick up lizards.
what a fairy tale of the 1990s.
Right?
It was actually, I'm not gonna lie, it actually greatly was. It was very lovely. That part of it
Okay.
was. I'll spare you the trauma.
So, Captain of the High Seas. Yes, very socially awkward. She is. You guys probably recognize her from Annie,
Yeah.
as Annie in Community.
Mhm.
It's weird. It's about like alien abduction. You think she's just awkward the whole time, and the whole thing is just so weird. It's beyond weird. Where you're like, what the fuck am I watching?
And
I don't like that shit.
Well, I'm not sold on watching it.
It's like a
maybe
bad
before we
dream.
jump into the meat and potatoes of our episode, will you do some shout outs of the audience?
Yeah, duh.
Duh.
Early arriver shout outs. We have Enzo, of course. We got to have Enzo. We don't start the
Wow.
fucking show until Enzo gets here.
Exactly.
Literally, I think that's actually true.
No, he wasn't here
Um,
last week when you weren't here. He took a nap on
Oh,
the
well, that's
couch.
because I wasn't here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Paradox Fossils, of course. That's a new one. Is that a new one, or am I
No.
just not paying attention to the chat?
Not paying attention.
Sorry. Loyal Joe 5D. Sorry, Paradox Fossils. And honestly, hold on. Where's Vanessa? I don't see Vanessa.
No, Vanessa.
You know what? I think that's all we have right now.
Beautiful vibes. I love it.
But whatever. We are small but mighty.
Exactly.
Kelpie crew.
Exactly.
Oops.
All right, bring it up, Bree.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Let's get it, Kelpie. Let's
Why,
get it,
God,
Kelpie
why?
in here. Let's get it, Kelpie.
He's gonna do a Scottish accent the whole time.
Not me.
I had that thought earlier, and I don't know whether I should.
It sounds Scottish enough
What is that?
already, Kari, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Really?
Kelpie.
Really?
You guys all sound like pirates to me.
Kelpie.
Listen, I only know a little
Wow,
bit, and that's
shit.
only because I'm watching Outlander again. So then it gets like the canny, lass, Donafash, like those things start to get in my head again. But
Now, Kari, are you close enough to Scotland to be cringed out by an American Scottish accent?
Yeah, kind
Get
of.
in
Right on.
my belly.
It's like secondhand embarrassing.
Yeah,
not-
it's
not
like
so
you
much
feel
personal.
for it, but it's not a
Yeah.
Only when I hear
pure
it.
empathy.
It's not as bad as when when people butcher the English accent. Like, all right, matey. It's like we don't talk like that. Like,
yes, you
But
do.
you speak like the Queen's English.
I just speak English. I don't know.
Yeah, but you don't
What?
sound
I speak
you sound astute.
American. I speak of the English.
You don't sound like
speak
a
the
like,
English.
Kari, you don't sound like a chimney sweep, is what I'm trying to say.
Well,
You
I
don't
could if
sound
you,
like you've
I
got
could if you want me
moles
to,
in your
Gavin.
mouth.
Yeah, you could do a whole Cockney thing.
I could. I'm not gonna though.
This is a
Okay.
problem, lassie.
Paradox Fossils here. What up?
Donafash, lassie. That'll get you good.
I'm letting you chat. How fucking rude of them.
Right?
All right,
All
give us the first slide. Like any great cryptid, you guys should know we have a cryptid beer of the week. This is the Kelpie Seaweed Ale from Williams Brothers Brewing Company in Clacklemanshire, UK, in Scotland. Does that how you say that, Kari? What's that fucking name?
Clackmanshire? Man,
Clack-
how do you? Yeah, I am at a loss.
Clackmanshire.
You guys, no
Clack-
wonder you
Man-
lost your empire.
So
Clackmanshire.
prior to the 1850s,
I'm gonna drink.
Scottish coastal ale houses brewed with malted barley grown in fields fertilized by seaweed. This environment gave the barley a very specific flavor, which is recreated of the inclusion of fresh seaweed into mash tun, which is like fruit. This beer is a dark chocolate ale, which has the aroma of a fresh Scottish sea breeze and a distinct malty texture. The taste is similar to a roasty porter, but with a burnt bread and chocolate notes, with a tiny hint of saltiness. And it's a 4.4% alcohol by volume. Yes, Bibby.
You know,
I have to ask
tiny
this,
hint
as I do pretty much every episode. Has any of us ever tried any of these beers we've recommended on the show?
I tried to buy this one, but
it
it's
was
out
sold
of
out.
stock.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we're trying.
I
folks.
resonated with the hint of saltiness because
Yeah, but
that's
I
what-
say
Yeah, that
all
actually
the
sounds really
time that I
good.
want to do a
Sounds really good.
cryptid ale thing. We
All the
will
time.
we'll do it.
We need to go to all of us need to go to beer stores. I don't know what to tell you outside of that. Get your ass to a beer store.
If you
Oh
guys
God,
make
it just
a
weighs
list,
me
we'll
down and
just
makes me
start
gassy.
To I do love the IPA, I'm not gonna lie. If you guys give me a list, we'll get it all off the list, and then just one day we'll have to start at like 11. Have
It
some
goes
liquid
all the way.
IV.
Yeah.
Because how many beers
Prepare
is
for the
that?
day.
I really,
Do a
I
whole
just,
show.
12 beers maybe?
I
One
do
beer an
Pabst Blue
hour.
Ribbon, and when I'm feeling fancy, I'll grab like Heineken. That's about the extent.
Yeah, I do a
of-
Coors or a wine.
Coors.
Yeah. Listen, I don't like beer, so I like to drink water.
Yeah, that is water.
beer.
I had a Coors
So
Light
I
earlier
water.
today, and I was like,
Yeah.
"This is like Gatorade.
It's like it's like it's like
It like has electrolytes. It's got what plants need."
It's like Pedialyte. It's like I feel like it's like a Pedialyte. It's like
Yeah,
nutrition.
like back in the day, like when you're in the height of your drinking career, I feel like I'm on the decline now. But like I remember being like, all right, I'm gonna stop drinking for a while, and you switch to like light beer. Like
you
that's
switch to
your
light beer.
intermission.
That was like yeah. Mm-hmm. Like
I drink milk like a
beer.
villain.
This is all tips from real alcoholics. Or
Alcoholics.
former ones.
All right,
I'm gonna drink. I'll drink to that.
Next exactly
This
drink to
dark color, though, I'm not into it. I wouldn't even want to try it.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
not gonna
very
lie.
stout.
It's saying that it's like chocolatey and bready and salty. I'm like, ooh, I'm actually kind of into it. It's like a little.
All of that shit
chocolate.
is bullshit.
I like it.
It
Now
it
we
does
know
sound
it-
like the
it
description of a
tastes like beer.
erect penis, though, in
But
a
it also
bet if you
smells like
in
the
a
ocean.
romance novel.
It said it smells like the ocean.
Yeah, it's salty, smells
Burnt
like
bread.
the ocean.
Burnt bread,
Oceany,
chocolate
chocolatey.
with a tiny
Yes.
hint of saltiness.
Just a hint of salt.
All
All right,
right.
here's the next one.
Ooh,
right, Kari.
it's moving.
Well, it actively kidnaps humans, so don't approach it. I would not approach this.
So
You're
high
really
alert on
selling the
this one.
fear here.
Yeah.
I'm trying
Terrifying.
to. Don't approach it, because nope.
Smells like
Like your
Lutz on
captain
it.
style. It's very laid
That
back.
was my
Very like,
nickname in
I'm
high
the captain,
school.
but I'm
George Costanza reference.
not. Okay,
No,
we'll move
Kramer.
Okay, so it normally appears as a black horse, but it will be kind of in the water or underwater.
It's gotta be black.
Which would be you'd freak out if you kind of saw that, like walking by some water and then there was just like a horse poking its head out at you, like, "Hi, what are you doing?" Like you'd be like, "What?" Its hooves are facing backwards, which also would freak me out. It's been known to shapeshift apparently and can be either a horse or a lady or go from one to the other, which is also really weird. Kidnaps people, like I just said. It would drag you underwater after appearing to you. That's why I was like, don't approach it, because it would do that, and you don't want that to happen.
Can I make a prediction? This is just an assumption. I think it's rooted in some reality, though. I feel like the Scottish culture is one of like bombastic, hyperbolic, fun, interesting embellishments of pretty much anything. Is that fair to say?
I think that their history leans into the.
I think they're like a folksy
Fae-
people.
Yeah, the Fae side
Yeah.
of the world, and I think that's what
Yeah.
you're describing. And I think that that's interesting because I feel like maybe some of the cryptids we've been running into lately have been a little bit more on the Fae side, and it's so interesting that we're getting into that kind of side of the cryptid world because it is indeed at its core a cryptid. It's like a creature from like this other dimension, and it's interesting that it has like specifically creatures of the Fae land are magical and shape-shifting, and we tend to have a lot of that bleed over into the cryptid world as well as like something that is the same kind of phenomenon.
And this may sound like something without any kind of modern eyewitness accounts, but you would be wrong.
I absolutely love it, and I don't think that it's all. I mean, yeah, obviously all this is going to stem from folktale, but I think we should also consider that maybe it wasn't just all fairy tales that they told. Maybe because back in the day they didn't have as much constant information being thrown at them, and just like our very fast-paced lives now are just so different, that I do think maybe you could see a bit past the veil, or maybe the veil was not so thick then because you didn't have all your other distractions and all of the connotations you already have, and your mind and your idea, your imagination to block other things that are here. So I just want you guys to hold on to that, maybe play with that possibility.
And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, which kind of ties into that. I feel like people obviously didn't have, well, one, like you were saying something about the access to information. So like people didn't have that nearly remotely even close to what we're dealing with now. Like they only knew the animals in their, for the most part, I would like in more so now than now in their general area. So on top of that, their vocabulary was probably, they didn't need a big vocabulary. So at some point you watch stuff like Ancient Aliens, and it's like George Tsoukalos will be like, they were just describing what they saw, but they didn't have a term UFO. But like extrapolate that out to like anything that we talk about, right? Does that make sense? So like,
Yeah, we've talked about that before.
so you're reporting back to
barrier.
what you witnessed that's relatively unfamiliar, and then that like plants the seed of the mythology itself, right? So it could
Absolutely.
very well be a real horse, but someone happened to see it in the sea one day, went back to their village, started telling these tall tales, and then it evolved and snowballed over the years into this thing that it is now.
Yeah,
So
I
it could
think
be both. It could be real, and it could be.
I think what Bobby's talking about, though, is we've talked about this a lot in the channel in general, is that we're always constantly trapped by our language barriers, right? Like we only can describe something in what we understand. So at the end of the day, like it's really hard for somebody to explain something to someone else because you can only explain what it is that you experienced. And a big thing that happens that we've talked about 100 times before is your brain just fills in spots. Like you see something and your brain literally just fills in the rest and makes it up. And so who's not to say that that's also not happening here? Not saying that they didn't see something, but maybe that they're exaggerating about things. And that's why we have the story that it is today. It's not that at the core they didn't see something. It's just that they saw something that their brain didn't understand.
So it's like a combination of being unfamiliar, but something still based in reality, plus the human interpretation / description of it to other people.
Absolutely.
Then I see the other side on that too. And maybe the next time I see a horse in the wild that's by water, I could be looking at something mystical, but my brain is going to fill in gaps and assume that it is a normal black horse.
Exactly. Yeah. It absolutely goes that way. 1,000%.
Maybe they're more common than we think. We just don't know we're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Bless you.
Bigfoots are just bears, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Someone had to say it. All right. So the origin of the Kelpie myth. It's funny we're just talking about this. I was going to bring up the turning into a woman could probably be traced back to the fertility gods in the Celtic religions, because they quite often had to do with like rivers, water, and like women like the feminine like side of spirituality, I guess.
Water is very feminine.
Right. So the origin can be traced back to ancient Celtic mythology, where water spirits were believed to inhabit bodies of water. This was like prevalent in their religion, and said to possess both magical and ominous powers. The word Kelpie is derived from the Scottish Gaelic term Callipike or Callipike Uski, which means water horse. And it gained prominence in Scottish folklore, particularly in rural regions, probably up around the lochs and stuff, where there's like lakes and open bodies of water. So it's a way to warn people about the dangers of just going out on the water. Eventually, that kind of died out in the folklore, and people just used it to keep children from playing too far from lochs and dangerous rivers, which is very much like the Kappa myth that we covered. Once the mythology isn't kind of mainstream in the culture anymore, it just becomes like a fairy tale for kids in like a safety kind of way.
I want to touch on the thing you said about like the water spirit, right? Like kind of alluding to what I was just talking about. It's like if these people didn't have, like, obviously a lot of this comes from pre-enlightenment, so they don't even have the like slightest scientific model of a mind. So it's like, they can observe like the rain is what causes the waves in the water to get kicked up and it's dangerous or whatever, but they don't know like, okay, so evaporation from the water, it creates water vapor clouds in the air and it drops. Like they don't think in those terms. So it's just like, nah, it's just the fucking spirit over there. The spirit of that lake is kind of a cunt sometimes, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm high, but I'm not high. I'm not saying I'm not high, but I'm
all the
not.
Elementals, especially in this area. They heavily believed in the elementals. So
I mean, I feel like spirit and God or gods or demons, it's just like catch-all for a lot of stuff. Like,
yeah, that's just... like, I was like, you're describing like a lot of ancient civilizations. A lot of them had gods or spirits around weather or crops or like all these things. Like, and that's how they explained it. It's that God of the gap theory. What they couldn't explain, it was, something was doing it. And so they would, sacrifice things to these spirits or gods in order to get them to, do certain things and stuff like that. And I think that that's just happening all throughout, early religions. It's just kind of like that was a human growing pain that we had,
But elementals are real.
I'm not saying that they're not real.
I guess this was back when there wasn't any kind of somewhat organized religion. It was more like beyond, the movie The Forest.
So I said
not The Forest, the Village. Yeah. It's like beyond the reaches of the hamlet or whatever. There's danger, and they have to like project something onto that to be able to contextualize it and teach it to the children. So
there's never
or not even just children. Like if you're like a cautionary tale, I said, that is a dangerous stream to cross over there. So hey, by the way, there's a fucking evil ass water spirit over there. I would probably be careful if you're, you know what I mean? It's like it's almost like a way to warn of what's ahead or something like that.
Right.
But there's so much water in Scotland. They're surrounded by
water. There is a lot of lochs, and they're surrounded by the ocean.
I think that's why
like Louisiana.
They have a lot of the cryptids based
children
in
fished as
lore,
well. Yeah. They also they relied on the children to also help pull their weight in fishing, gathering things. So it has to be some strange line. I think in a normal aspect, like in a normal situation with these other pastimes, yes, keep the kids away from the water. But I feel like in Scotland, they are barley, like they had thicker skin. I feel like even just Scots in general, they're much more like earthy, stronger of a person, and they relied on the water.
Hardy folk.
They relied on fishing. They relied on the children to help them. So yes, it does make sense to keep children out of the water, but it also doesn't, because they also need their children to help them when they're going fishing and whatnot. So that's another thing. I think this might be a case where it doesn't really fit the ideal scenario of just being a fable to keep your kids out of the water.
Yeah, I agree. It's way more than that, but and like we already talked about it, the origins of it are far and away beyond a cautionary tale. But I think we're just saying like it likely was used as one as well.
I think as
UFO in
the
back.
folklore and the kind of Celtic religions were dying down, and like Christianity and Roman Catholicism were coming in, England was being invaded by the Normans and then the Saxons and all this stuff.
Fucking shit up.
Yeah, and then the advent of science and the Industrial Revolution, it very much like changed it from a religious thing into a cautionary tale, folklore kind of thing. I think that was the tipping point around that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So I have a little bit more for this slide. So it also encouraged women to be wary of good-looking strangers, as they are shapeshifters that most often appear as a horse, but also can take human form. So that they would warn women, like, if you see a good-looking stranger on the road, be wary, because they could be a Kelpie in disguise.
Or if you see a beautiful wild horse,
right? If you come across,
do not approach.
A wild horse next to a river,
it might kick you.
Right. So many reports stated that you could spot a Kelpie in human form by looking at its feet, because the hooves wouldn't change, and that was like the way to be able to tell, is to look at the feet.
I feel like we've actually said that before, and I don't know what episode, but I feel like we've talked about that before, how they knew what it was because of the feet, and I don't remember which cryptid it was, but I feel like that's kind of
Bigfoot
for sure. I feel maybe a skinwalker or something like that. We talked about
not a skinwalker, but I think you're right, Jamie, and I can't remember.
Someone in the chat remembers. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
Well, I think that feet inherently provide evidence for these things. So I think feet are actually a big deal with most all cryptids. Maybe not so much aquatic ones, but this one's an aquatic one.
Because my last bit was that it's similar to the concept of Satan minus the horns and tail, because keeping the hooves as feet.
I was just gonna say, isn't that like a demon thing? Yeah, isn't that like a demon thing? Like how you know it's a demon is because you can always their hoofs. It's like a thing. That's how you know, regardless of what they look like. You look at their feet and then you know it's a demon.
And like we were already like something that can like fill in a surrogate spirit or demon of a pagan tradition. When the Catholics come in, they can kind of adopt that and assimilate it into their tradition and make it more about a Satan figure or a Baphomet or a goat man or something like that. Someone had to bring up camel toes, huh? Oh, hide some long grass this year.
Next slide.
Next.
Oh, what is he doing?
We've got an excellent Jerry making a cameo here. So I'm going to end with a poem by a Scottish poet called Robert Burns, called Address to the Devil. When those dissolve the snowy horde and float the jingling icy board, then water kelpies haunt the ford. By your direction and nighted travellers are alert to their destruction. Robert Burns, 1786.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah, so it's kind of a warning, warning in a poem about, the kelpies haunting kind of like crossings on rivers and stuff. Which is, on height, when rivers are running high, it's not safe to cross at those crossings that they usually would be. So they put out those warnings, I guess.
Robert Burns. Yeah. He's a big, doe-eyed fella, isn't he?
Yeah, I was surprised there was such a high quality painting of him.
What a canny photo for the mic.
Yeah.
So cute. Oh my god.
Yes.
Let's visit a little bit of the mythology, a little bit of the folklore.
Okay.
Like most folklore and mythology, there's usually different variations and interpretations of what this folktale is. So when it comes to the Kelpie in general, there's a lot of debate on whether or not scholars kind of agree for what Kelpie means. It can either mean a group of creatures in folklore, so like group of them, or it's the water dwelling horse, like we've been looking at recently. And then other people think that it was a being that lived beside the lake. So instead of in the water, it would just live by the lakeside, not like submerged in water. But the overall Kelpie that we're talking about is described as this very dark, like black horse underwater, but can also take a human form, making it a shapeshifter. And in Aberdeenshire, the Kelpie is described as a horse having 9 serpents in its mane. I think that might be a stem from biblical, like a biblical thing, like with the 9 and then with
Is
the
that the
serpent.
Hydra?
It sounds similar to me, that maybe that's where that stems from. Yeah, and again, it's just that the Kelpie has so many different forms and variations that has been recorded all around the country, and that's most likely because it starts from a folktale being told word of mouth, spread throughout the country, to then as time goes on, it's being transformed because it's being transcribed into English. So it obviously there's going to be a little bit of a difference there. But in Scotland in particular, the Kelpie is very much this like water spirit. And in every body of Scotland, it basically has its own Kelpie story, and especially in Loch Ness. So when we think, that's why I feel like a lot of the pictures that we've been using is from like Loch Ness, like the Loch Ness monster. But that's because that's kind of the stem of where the Kelpie comes from, its whole thing. The Loch Ness has the most stories, the most tales of Kelpie.
It's the most enduring one that
Yeah,
survived.
so you can see like it's either depicted as like a group of them, or this like scary dark thing, or this shape shifting into a woman thing that kind of reminds me a little bit of like a siren, like mixed with like a mermaid, you know, like this woman that lures you in and is a shapeshifter, or this really half horse, half water spirit. But I would say
which one of those would you like to have like a anime body pillow of on your bed?
The middle one with the green hair.
Probably the middle one with the
dark
green
horse
hair.
with the white.
Word.
This one's most attractive to me.
I'd get the mountains in the background because they're the biggest thing.
I think the idea of the Kelpie being used as a group of creatures honestly reminds me a lot of Krampus. Like when we looked into the whole story of the Krampus, it was like it's either like one thing in particular, or it has all of these different embodiment, like all these different counterparts, right, all over Scandinavia, and together they all equaled Krampus. So it wasn't just one individual, and I think this is like exactly the same thing in its terms. If that makes sense. So this is the story of a missing hand.
Oh no.
This is a very common story. This is a tale that's been told there on Loch Ness about a group of children that were playing on the edge of the water. And as the water starts to ripple and it starts to foam, this beautiful black horse just like appears out of nowhere. So all of the 10 children start running over to it, circling it, like petting it. And 9 of them jump on the back of this horse, trying to like ride it and go around and whatnot. But there was only one child that stayed on the floor. on the ground. And that child, being curious and wanting to stroke the back of the horse's neck, attempted to reach out and do so. But instead, the boy's finger gets lodged into the horse and is stuck there. Very mystical. Just like stuck in this horse.
Mystical is one way to describe it.
Yeah.
So the boy is hysterical. He's terrified. Trying everything he can do to like free his hand of the horse, but it's just not working. And the horse just like takes off back into the water, trying to pull him and all of the 9 children on top of him back into the water. And so the boy is like, all right, all I can do is chop off my hand. That's the only option I have. So in the blink of an eye, he acts quick. No one knows where the hammer or a saw or
He did it with a hammer.
Came from. No one knows where this came from. There's no record of what he used.
Oh.
I just imagine that in the blink of an eye, if you know that you have to get rid of your hand, it has to be something
I wouldn't
really
look for a hammer.
able to do the job. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. Okay?
Yeah, like that guy like in Utah a few years ago they made that movie about, who was rock climbing.
127 hours with James Franco.
Yeah, I saw that guy at a bar one time. In
No
The
way.
real guy or the actor?
No, the real guy, not James Franco. I saw him at the X. I was at the X Games in Aspen one year, and he was at some
Drinking
bar.
at the bar.
Right on.
Yep. And it
And
was
he
like right
wasn't
after
double
that
fisted,
happened.
was he?
Obviously
Aspen is one of my
not.
favorite places in the world.
Bree's got jokes.
Jokes.
It's funny because he had one
Sorry.
arm.
Well, gotta hand
Anyway,
it to Bree.
this is just a funny. This is just a funny part of the story that they don't really describe, because again, this is a folktale that, you know, his hands lodged. He knows that he has to escape the water. The horse is trying to take him and all of his 9 friends back into this lake where he disappeared from. So the boy, being so brave, cut his own hand off to free himself of the horse's neck, just in time for the horse to go back
It's a
into the water,
climax.
take all of his friends with him, and that boy is just laying there like with one hand and just blood spewing everywhere. It was just like a bloodbath. It was like KARI all over again, you know, that poor child. And then he ran back home and tried to gather the village people to help him mend his hand. They
The village people.
find his hand.
Did they do the
hand-
YMCA?
Yeah.
The hand was missing. They couldn't find it. No, I don't know. That's not a part of the story. So we don't know if
one
his
of them
hand
a
was back or
construction
not.
worker.
But he tried to find someone to help him, and then to find the children.
Is there an Indian?
No
I
one
bet you the
could
Indian
find
would
the
have helped.
children. But the sad part is that this boy, ever since that day, spent the rest of his days waiting riverside in hopes that his friends and that god-awful demon horse would reappear.
Wow.
And it never happened.
Of course not. It wasn't
They
going to
were
bring back his hand.
seen again.
That's a
Had a
great
delicious
story.
snack. Went back under. It was like, thank you.
I'm one hand
Mm-mm.
clapping for you.
I'm sustained. Yeah.
Snaps.
You guys really got to cut it out.
Who did this to me?
The
Jesus.
horse.
Did someone edit my next story?
I don't know.
Like what?
Nothing. Okay. our next
I added that like 2 days ago.
You're full of shit. Our next folklore, this one is the most believable of them all.
Mhm.
Another common story there is in the island of Mike Barra and the Outer Hebrides.
Can you say that again?
What?
It's just
Hebrides.
Island of Barra. It's Island of Barra, and someone changed my notes to Mike.
The island of
I-
Mike Barra.
I added Mike.
And his
But what did you
wacky
say
moon
after
stuff.
that? The islands of
Oh, was that it? Hebrides?
Hebrides?
Hippodites.
Outer Hebrides. Does that sound right for the Kelpie?
Yeah.
The story is about a young
Hebrides. Hebrides.
lonely Kelpie looking for love.
Hebrides.
Anyway, this story is a little bit of a different vibe. So this isn't like this magically appearing demon trying to take children back into the underworld, but more of a Kelpie that is just lonely and just wants some love. So this Kelpie happens to find himself a silver necklace that gives him whatever the property is of silver. It's almost probably like a talisman. Helps him shapeshift into a man, a very handsome man. So he wears this necklace and he's able to woo this woman that he wants to take as his wife. He loves her. So he wears this necklace. They fall in love. They're going to get married, but before they could, she gets a weird vibe from him. And while they're sleeping, she takes the necklace off.
Does he get her fingers stuck in her?
No, but that would be
Again.
funny. A little bit of like a switcheroo.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't happen. So they're in the middle of the night sleeping. She takes the necklace off and he shapeshifts back into a horse, back into his Kelpie form. So she fucking freaks out, drags the horse back to her father's farm, and forces him to work to be a slave for a year. So it's like this horrible breakup. This poor dude's like, what the fuck? She stole my necklace. I'm a horse again. I am working on this farm. I am a slave. This is bullshit. And she's like, I'm so sad. She finds a wise man because she's like, help me. Obviously, I fucked up. What is my luck? How did this happen to me? The wise man of all things is like, give that man back his necklace, bitch. And so she's like, all right, fine. She goes back and she's like, okay, I visited the wise man. He told me that I should give this back to you. And because she had such a nice gesture to give it back, he gave her the option. What do you like me better as? A man, a handsome man, where I could take you to actually be my bride? Or if not, I'll go back to my ratchet Kelpie horse days. I can stay hooved and stinky. What do you want? And surprisingly, she chose him as a man, as a handsome young man. So he put that necklace back on. He transformed again. They got married, and they live happily ever after.
I got a question. Does his feet change?
Yeah, he's a whole ass man now.
Okay.
Wow. The power
Perfect.
of love.
It is
Right.
Beauty and the Beast.
It's the power of
like-
love that changes
yeah.
feet.
It's Beauty and the Beast.
Ooh, vibes.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different. Again, yes, like a shape shifting. I mean, not so much. The first story, not so much shape shifting. Just magical. This one for sure shape shifting. But it's with the help of the silver necklace. I think in lots of Scottish culture, you have there's a lot of weight credit goes to different types of metals, to rocks, stones. I think a lot of like even our current knowledge and our current appreciation for different stones and minerals honestly comes from that side of the world. That's where they really took it more seriously, and they recognized the metaphysical properties and bonuses that we could benefit from that. So the silver there incorporated. Who's to say if the Kelpie was actually magical enough to shapeshift without the necklace? We don't know. But overall, it's associated that the Kelpie can shapeshift. But in this one very, very known story, one of the two that's so known, he uses the necklace to do so. So that's kind of questionable. Think about it.
It's interesting the integration of a talisman, because that probably goes back to the pagan religions as well.
Exactly. Oh, wait, before we move on, what would you guys have chosen? A horse or a husband?
Horse.
Amaria.
I'd choose the farmer in the background to farm me vegetables.
That's dad.
Well, I choose the dad.
You choose
So
your
you
own
would
dad.
choose to get with the dad.
I wouldn't
Get
get
with
with
your
him.
own
I'd just
dad.
employ him as a farmer.
But he already is. He's your
Smart.
dad, and he's a farmer. You left.
Oh,
whole
in
thing
this
is kind of
situation,
Yeah.
I'm the girl.
No,
Girl,
just
yeah.
anything like what would you? I don't actually like that it's a girl's point of view because like why would he tell this woman like you whatever you want we can get married? She's the one that basically enslaved him for an entire year.
I
Right.
also think it's interesting because usually it's the woman
Some
who's the
Stockholm syndrome.
seductress, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's her tricking him, but this time it's like the frog and the prince or whatever, where like it's the man is the siren.
Right.
Mm.
Maybe he has ulterior motives.
Maybe.
Ooh, maybe there's a part 2 of this folk tale,
Maybe.
and he just slaughters her in the night.
All right.
Shit.
So we're gonna get into some more recent sightings. I use that term loosely. The first one, this happened 2 different times with different sets of women. Once in 1975 and once in 1999. There were reports of seeing a strange horse with the legs of a dog prancing around the woods in broad daylight. And then whenever they would see it, it would vanish really quickly. And this was pretty much all in Alicia, the Inglewood Pond area.
Where's that?
I don't know, somewhere in Scotland.
Oh.
We're talking about. I like the little dog feet. I'm actually kind of into it.
It's
Wait, is
interesting.
that it?
Yeah, that's all it was. 2 women, 2 different times.
The same women?
No, 2 different
Okay.
different women every time.
Okay.
But once in 1995 and once in 1997. So here's the big problem before we go to the next one. So here's the big problem with this and sightings, because Bree kind of summed it up earlier. It's a lot of word of mouth and a lot of like folklore stories, and not necessarily like people having sightings. The sightings that we have is something like this. Like, so these are the more realistic ones of that are more are newer that we're talking about, that could be mistaken or could be a Kelpie, is kind of like the only route I could go. There's not a lot of people that have recorded stories of them being like, this is my encounter with a Kelpie, other than of like, I was by the lake and then I saw it and then it disappeared.
Right.
So there's not like a lot of like, oh my God, it dragged me down and I had to cut off my hand, like we have with Breeze or the stories in mythology related to it.
The show, which makes more sense. Because even if someone did do that, would you really want to tell people and not wind up in the looting bin?
So this next one is all over the Isles in general, just anywhere where there's going to be like sea caves. The date and time are unknown because this is just like a general story about these kind of areas. So there's a hybrid sea living creature. The Knuckleave was described as having features of both a mighty horse and its rider. The rider was legless and appeared to grow straight out of the horse's back. Its head was 10 times the size of a normal human head, possessing a very wide mound that jutted out like a pig's snout, and a single red eye that blazed with a flame. It was both hairless and skinless, and Nivitek's breath was toxic and was responsible for the Mordasheen, a fatal disease of cattle.
It's like the cyclone on a horse.
I feel like it's literally the same thing, just with like a person growing out of it. So like maybe a Kelpie mid-transformation or some shit.
I feel like the toxicness, it could be like mad cow disease and stuff before they knew what mad cow disease was.
Well, yeah, that's what they said. They said it was that's what was responsible for it, was that horse's breath. This is something that they didn't understand.
Yeah. God of the gap.
Your horse's breath. Is that it?
Give me the next one. One more. Yeah, another one. So
he's having a bad time.
Yeah, this one's having a bad time. So this one is again down by the like Rocky Creek areas, just all around anywhere where the sea, the Grander Rock area. So this is an incredibly ugly to look at monster that would sit for many hours on rocks. One man went too close to it once, and he was later found with his flesh clawed off.
Brutal.
Why does it look like a Bigfoot?
So the thing is, Yeah, so this one is more of a humanoid beast by the water, and I feel I put this one in there because this is, again, it's more that idea of there is something really there and happening, but everybody's description of it is slightly different of what they're seeing. So who's not to say that it wasn't a Kelpie in its more human form and not necessarily a horse form, you know?
Or the Kelpie in the form of it being a group of creatures in folklore, and not just the horse version. Maybe a Kelpie, because it also means a group of like creatures in folklore. Maybe that really is like a Scottish term for cryptid, which means it could be anything. It could be a fucking orangutan. What? Yeah. What?
I mean, that would actually be in line with what like chimpanzees and stuff have been known to do in the forest and stuff. Yep. So, but 1000%. them being in Scotland is a bit interesting. I don't think they go to Scotland.
But sometimes they just get let out of someone's little
I've come to pick a fight.
Don't come to pick a fight.
Get out of my swamp.
All right, so this next one we have is kind of more the kind of like the famous sighting and story of it, and this is like written down like the more documented version. It's not necessarily new. It's 1961 is when it was written, so it happened sometime before them. It's called Selected Highland Folk Tales. There's a lot inside of it. So it goes, one afternoon in the autumn of 1938, Mary Falconer, a woman of Achillesness in West Sutherland, was taking a shortcut with a companion through the hills with some venison in a sack over her shoulders. On nearing Loch Garnet Beg, which is like what they call like a bay almost, she noticed a number of ponies grazing by the loch side. Thinking that it was one of the beasts, a white one, was her next door neighbor's horse, she thought that she would like walk over to it and throw her bags over on it. And she walked towards the animal. And when she got a few feet from it, she noticed that it was much larger than a pony than her neighbors had been. And to her astonishment, she saw around its neck, entangled with its mane, a cluster of water weeds, which is like seaweed. The eyes of the animal and the woman met, and the instant she sensed that she was looking at each usage on top, which is like a fae, how they describe it, and was no
similar
ordinary
to
being.
the name earlier.
Yes, exactly.
So it's
the same. Yeah.
To her amazement, then and there, the whole group of about 13 ponies noticed her and galloped to the edge of the water, plunging into the loch, and sank below to the surface in front of her eyes. Her companion corroborated her story and said, like, yeah, I witnessed all this happen. Like, she's 100% telling the truth. And a lot of people in that area are convinced that, like, it's not just one. It's like what Bree was talking about, like a whole herd of them, like a whole gaggle of them out there. It's not just an individual creature, but there's multiple Kelpies, not just one.
Am I the only one that finds it really sus, the name of this Ronald McDonald?
So that's yes, and what made it really frustrating is I could not find a photo of him because no matter how I put in his name, it just came up with pictures of Ronald McDonald.
Yo, what's up with our chat? We have two now that are like, the chat ain't working.
I don't know. This chat
ain't working and it ain't twerking.
I don't know. We have no control over that.
Fucking YouTube.
All right,
find me on the Rumble before you know it, Aussie.
Thank you, Jamie. That was interesting.
You're welcome.
Bree, you have a pretty good Scottish accent.
I've got a better one, mate.
All right, Car.
All right.
How do we defeat these fuckers?
So, according to the law, you can a silver bullet will kind of similar to a werewolf will defeat a Kelpie.
Of course.
An iron spear, which is depicted here in that slide, will kill a Kelpie. If you can steal the bridle, which is like, I think it's like the seat and stuff.
No, the bridle is the thing that goes over its face that the reins go onto.
Okay, thank you, Horse Girl.
You're welcome.
So if you can steal that, you will have power over it, which is kind of interesting. And salt will ward it off and prevent its mane from turning into snakes, which is pretty interesting. So if you want to ride a Kelpie, you have to put something between you and its skin, or you'll get stuck in it, like the kid with the hand. So make sure there's a layer of skin if you want to. So say you get control of it, you take its bridle, and if you want to ride it, just make sure you don't touch it with your bare skin. But you can
wear a condom. Be safe.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Gloves.
Yeah.
Glove or no love.
So that's what I got there.
Okay.
I thought you did.
Next in.
So there's chubby me with a load of donuts. So here's a video I found of a deer poking its head out of the water, coming in from the water, and I've never actually seen a deer do this. So I was like, what if you saw that from far away, and you didn't know that there were deer in the region? You'd be like, wait, what is that?
It's a baby horse.
Especially coming out of the water.
Right.
Or like the ocean. Like, it's one thing if it's coming out of like a river or a pond, but out of the ocean, you're like, wait a fucking second. Horses don't just be coming out of the ocean. And then seeing that from far away, not realizing like it's a deer, I can absolutely see somebody mistaking that for what it is.
Yeah, me too. It kind of, I could see many of them from history being just misidentifications of stuff like this.
I think that happens a lot throughout all of cryptid history. It's not that it's saying that the cryptids aren't real, but I think that absolutely happens a lot, that there's a lot of misidentification that happens if people see something and they just, their brain doesn't understand it, and so it fills in the gaps.
Right. He's booking it.
I disagree, Lassie.
Why do you disagree, like?
Because I've been here my whole life, watching the beach. I didn't know the kind of land that is there for a horse.
What would you do if a deer just swam in out of the Pacific Ocean? Would you be like, what the fuck is going on, like?
I'm gonna do that.
Oh my god. Are we in Edinburgh right now?
Yeah, that was a lot.
I am.
You could be in Edinburgh
if you whisked me away to a Scottish Highland village.
Should I just do the rest of the show with this accent?
I don't know, Lassie.
I don't really
I think
want
that
to have to
this
do
is
that,
an
but-
incredibly realistic earthly explanation, and I think that it's not that we're saying this is 100% what it is, but I can 1,000% see somebody seeing something like this and being confused.
Absolutely.
I want to say that the tardigrade on your shoulder looks like a uncircumcised penis.
Wow.
Shout out to
I
people
did that
who have uncircumcised
just so
penises.
you'd make that comment. So there's
right,
other similar cryptids. Oh wait.
I gotta pull up my notes. Sorry.
Oh, I made the slide
go-
thinking it was.
You can take it away if you want.
I've only got a little bit.
Do something.
So in Orkney, so these are the islands north of Scotland. There's different names for the similar kind of cryptid. So in Orkney, it's called the Noogle. In Shetland, it's called the Shupilti. On the Isle of Man, it's called the Cabal Ushti. In Welsh folklore, there are tales of the Ceffyl Dwr. And in Scotland, there's another water horse which we've spoken about called the Eek Yuski, which is just a shortened version of the mythological name. And that's what I've got. What have you got, Bobby?
I mean, they're all just water horses.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
Right.
there's
They're
every
different
little
names,
region
though.
around, every little loch, and every little what do you guys have out there in the UK? You got like counties?
Yeah.
Every little county seems to have some sort of fucking water horse.
Well,
I mean,
this goes back to what I was saying, but like with the village. So like every town had its own miniature kind of mythology going on because there wasn't a centralized thing before, like organized religion, like Christianity came in from mainland Europe and stuff. Before that, it was.
Do you guys?
isolated.
Are there like any like big carp or anything in the seas or the lakes or anything? Like, is there like any kind of big fish?
There's probably lakes with carp in them. There are some big fish in
absolutely.
it. Yeah,
absolutely. There's big fish there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here-
There's a
but here's the-
reservoir a few
But
miles
here's
away
the
that
problem
probably
with that.
has
So
them.
I could see something like the Loch Ness being confused as just a big fish because it's something that's constantly described as being in the water. But realistically, looking into fish to explain the Kelpie doesn't quite make sense because we have so many instances of it being on land. You know what I
Right.
mean?
What if it is a misidentified Loch Ness monster type creature?
So I think that that's also a huge possibility we have with most
Because
of
they
the
they
cryptids.
didn't have dinosaurs. They didn't know about dinosaurs back then, or
Well, I think-
plesiosaurs or whatever.
Yeah, I think that that's we have that issue with a lot of cryptids, especially when we talk about things like Bigfoot, and we have all these places that have these individual versions of them. But at the end of the day, they're all like they're Bigfoots. But because they live in different
Right.
regional areas, they have these different regional things about them. They might be a slightly different color, or have different colored eyes, or have their feet fucking webbed or some shit, or whatever it is. And I think that that's a common issue within cryptids in general, where I think that people are, instead of generalizing the names of them, are getting super specific to areas, when in reality we're describing, like, a lot of times, like when we talk about cryptids or when we get into the research of them, we think it's like this one thing, and then we start to look outwards and then realize it's in all
Mhm.
these other places as well, just like under a slightly different name of the same thing.
Right. And each one of those regions that has their own little thing ends up creating their own little vacuum sealed version of it,
Exactly.
unique version of it.
Mhm.
But what I'm
Mhm.
suggesting is, because they didn't know about plesiosaurs, if you see something like that looks like a Loch Ness monster coming out of the water like this, I guess the closest thing you can describe it as is like a big horse
Yeah.
head coming out of the water.
Right.
I don't know,
Mhm.
just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, the horse spirit, I guess, or the horse archetype as a spiritual creature is nothing remotely new, right? You have the Pegasus, you have the unicorn, you have those pink horses from Wizard of Oz. When you go, those things at the end of Wizard of Oz, you got all kinds of different spiritual horses out there.
Right.
And like we've talked about, you have shared spiritual beliefs that run the gamut all around the world a lot of times. And then you also have, what animals do we have in our internal mental Rolodex in our culture and community at that time? So there's only so much stuff to combine things with, right? So it's like, yeah, it's a fucking horse, and it has powers, so it's a spirit horse. And here's what ours is like, and yours may be similar but a little different on down the road there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey. Oh dear.
Next.
Next. What do we
Oh.
think?
We're at the end, yeah.
Okay. I nominate Bobby to go first.
I think I do. I hate to use this. If it is real, it is a product of it manifesting itself from the human consensus.
Tulpa, yeah.
Oh, like an Igor.
It is a tulpa. Yeah, it's a tulpa.
Yeah.
If it's real. And I think that tulpas have a lot of potential, honestly, because it's all about the eye of the beholder. And if the tulpa has more people believing in it, it becomes more and more real, and then it can finish. What are you talking about, Joe 5D? I'm fine. I haven't done any ever in my life, to be completely honest.
Oh, you're
But
missing out.
Lame.
I don't
Missing
think
out.
I don't think I need it. Is what we're
Everybody
I've never
needs
done
it.
either, so
yeah. So I think this is if this is real, it's a tulpa. If it's not real, it's definitely some sort of just everything we've already talked about, some sort of misidentification based in the folklore, based in the vernacular of the time, based in the region, and it becomes this thing through word of mouth. And like we've already talked about a second ago, each little village has their own version of it. Throw on top of it that you don't have scientific explanations for, like, a river that's dangerous. So maybe some dude saw a horse by that river and like, oh, that horse represents how dangerous that river is. That horse must be the water spirit. Water spirit turns into Kelpie. Kelpie turns into, I was talking about it on Bobby's Cryptid Corner in the year 2023. Middle bitch, hard middle bitch.
yeah.
Right on.
I'm gonna have to hard middle bitch this one as well, for different reasons, but also the same reasons. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I believe that if if anything, all cryptids are real because they're tulpas, and if we believe in them at the end of the day, then they're a real thing. I think that's how reality works, 1000%. But I also think that because this is just so widespread, and there's so many people who have their own little stories about it, and all these little different cultures within that region have their own stories and experiences, whether it's the same name or a different name, or the exact same story they're telling or slightly different versions of it. I think that there's something to that, and that they are experiencing something. So I know that part is real. What it truly is, I do not know, but I believe that it's based in some sort of reality of them seeing something. But like you said, is it the fact that they've created this and this is a thing that's there now, or is it just a gross misidentification? I think that it really this is one of those ones that really walks the line of both of those possibilities, because both of them are so strong in this case. So I'm going to have to straight middle bitch it down the middle.
Hell yeah.
Brienne.
I really like this realm of cryptids we're getting into.
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
shares a lot of motifs, but is also very unique. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot there to unpack on each one.
Yeah.
We should do just like a Scottish Irish like themed. It's my favorite.
I think when we have the water season,
next week we're covering Scrooge McDuck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie as our cryptids.
Hell yeah.
DuckTales. Woo!
DuckTales.
I knew that was coming. And then we'll do an episode on Disney's The Gummy Bears. Bouncing here and there and everywhere.
And then we can do one on. So Daffy Duck doesn't wear pants, but when he gets out of the shower, he wraps a towel around his waist.
Daphne or
well, he's gonna dry off.
Donald Duck.
Donald.
You said Daphne.
Oh, I meant Donald.
All right, Bree, give us your number.
Who the fuck is Daphne Duck?
The late tea.
It's
I'm
Donald Duck's wife.
going to have to side with you guys. I'm gonna middle bitch this one. Because my rational mind says that there is no way in hell that there is a horse that's a shapeshifter and goes underwater and does these fucking magical things. But I know that Scotland is a bit of a magical place. And of course, the tulpa thing. And because I honestly think that there is a possibility with what I talked about earlier with just where we are as a people and the things that we're able to see, the veil. And I also think that's the same as there could also be information cycles and experience cycles. So it could be like we can only see so much and we have access to so many things, and then there's a next cycle and we progress and certain things aren't accessible or certain things are gone.
You talking about reincarnation?
It's a bit of a stretch idea, but I think
Bree has done acid. I will say that
she has multiple times.
I think that, that's kind of where I'm feeling. So I'm gonna middle bitch that for sure.
Ooh shit, Kari, are we gonna middle bitch it across the board? Or are you gonna fuck up?
I thought about being a contrarian, but it wouldn't be honest. Like, I think I'm in the middle too. Like, I agree with everything you guys have said about it becoming a tulpa or an egregore, an egregorical kind of thing where so many people believed in it that it kind of became its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Became like, it's kind of like it's going to sound like a weird analogy, but memes. So when something becomes mimetic and spreads virally.
Oh, it's
I
exactly.
can't believe I never thought that meme was mimetic.
Yeah.
How did I never put the two together?
Welcome to the 21st century, Brianna.
Brie, I thought you were an influencer.
That's like the other day, my mom was
Never
like,
influenced anything in my life.
My mom the other day goes, "What does Riz mean?" And I said, "It's short for charisma." And she was like, "No." And I was like, "Yeah, they just be shortening words."
To be
these
fair,
days.
I've never heard that.
I just learned that
know?
right now.
You didn't know that? You guys didn't know
I've
that?
heard the word
is.
Riz. I didn't know that's what it meant.
Charisma. Your charisma.
I learned about mid the other day, and I love it.
Oh, I love mid. Yeah, mediocre.
It's so fucking mid.
I just learned that now because we know mid, but then like when you use it in the term of like what's her name? Margot Robbie? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Margot.
She's
not
Margot
mid.
Robbie was mid. Yeah.
She is the most beautiful girl I've seen in Hollywood. And the fact that people are calling her mid, I didn't even understand because I was like, what are they trying to say?
Well, she was in something recently, right? Is that the
She's in
chick?
Barbie.
Beautiful. She's a very beautiful lady.
Oh,
Barbie
yeah.
movie.
I can't-
Does she play Barbie?
Yeah,
Barbie.
it comes out like this Friday.
Oh, that lady. Okay.
Ooh, point of personal privilege.
Actually, KARI didn't finish their.
Oh,
thought.
sorry, Kari.
What? That was
Sorry.
like 2 minutes ago. I can't remember.
You didn't give it. You said like you felt the same, but you didn't finish.
Oh.
I cut you off, and then it.
and
it
then
Yeah,
I
just-
fucked it up.
domino situation.
I'm just kind of middle bitch it because I kind of agree with you all, and I think it's with its etymology coming from pagan and Celtic religion, and then moving through into folklore, and it's that's where it comes from. But then there's the egregore aspect of everybody believing in it at the time, and does it become real? So yeah, I'm kind of in the middle.
I'm gonna speak for Tony. He's a sci-fi bitch.
Yeah, he
is what
sci-fi'd it.
is.
Yeah,
He's a sci-fi bitch.
ruined it for us
Ghillie
all.
suit wearing sci-fi.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
now can I push the button? Now is it time?
You already did it. It's fine. We'll skip.
All right, skip it.
Ba-bum,
Baby.
ba-bum, bum, bum, bum.
Well, actually, Kari has one first, right?
I do. The Water Horse, which is literally a movie about this Kelpie. A young boy finds a small little tiny baby water horse and nurses it, and it becomes big, and it's a big, like, lovely story. It made Brianna cry. That's my recommendation.
I've never seen that one.
It's pretty good. I remember seeing it a number of years ago, and in preparation for today's show, I was like, I remember this movie. What was it called? And I found that.
Because why is it
Cool.
that in all the movies, when someone has like a dog, a Kelpie, and you fucking name it, a cat, a goat, a horse, beyond, there's always this point in the movie where the animal's got to go. Tell me I'm not wrong. And they're like, go, get out of here, just go.
because
It's
it's
better
like the
for
same-
you.
It's because it's like the same
Leave.
What's happening right
people
now?
writing all of those movies.
I don't want to. And then they cry.
Yeah, I mean, if it's
Why?
about a dog, if it's about a pet, yes, that's true. But I would
Yes.
say
It's in
like
all
that
of
never
those
happens
movies.
with like the dog from Frasier. You know, like it's not
Right.
every time
'Cause
there's
it's
a
not
pet.
about
Yeah.
Right.
all the
No, I
other
hear you.
movies.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
a wolf. I feel like it's in at least like 10 plus.
It's
different
probably in Air Bud, I would guess,
Probably.
Yes.
about the dog that plays
Yeah,
basketball,
yeah.
No,
and then he plays a bunch of other sports in the sequels.
I need you. Leave.
All right, Bibby, what's your recommendations?
Mine's gonna be 1980 Roger Corman classic, Humanoids from the Deep. This is not a water horse, but it is an aquatic creature. A humanoid from the deep is a creature that is a humanoid, an aquatic humanoid that is murderous and starts stalking, the residents of a small fishing village and causing havoc. And it is so fun. It's kind of like Jaws meets like a zombie movie almost. I don't know.
That's cool.
Or Jaws meets like Creature from the Black Lagoon. Only there's a bunch of creatures from the deep.
It's like
And
Bruce
if you don't know much about Roger Corman, he's one of these Hollywood guys that just cranked out a bunch of crap for profit, and a lot of that crap turned into wonderful, wonderful crap. And this is one of his best. He was not about the integrity of the art of cinema. He was about making that money. And Humanoids from the Deep, I don't know if it made any money, but it's pretty awesome.
Awesome.
What's the last one?
The final one is the 1997 movie Loch Ness with Ted Danson, where again a kid finds a kelpie in a lake, and it draws the attention of the media, and then the government's trying to find him. And the cool thing at the end of the movie is that he's like a plesiosaur kind of thing, kind of like on the water horse poster there. But at the end of the movie, it turns out that there's this like underwater cavern under the castle at Loch Ness, which is where it's been living for millions of years.
Of course.
Yar.
And
So
it's-
is the
it's a
Loch Ness
magical-
monster considered a Kelpie?
I would consider it a kelpie because I think it's an evolution of the same mythology.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, it's come from the
Interesting.
same place.
You know what we
Yeah.
need to start implementing in these movie recommendations is where people can stream them. I think that would be
Oh,
helpful.
yeah.
Enzo does that every
Enzo
time.
does
Enzo
it
does
every
it every
time.
time.
Enzo does it, but I think that you guys need to because
I do too. Like when I did my movie
Enzo, where
recommendation
can I
last month
stream?
or last week, I did.
We're on Tubi. Okay.
We will do that in future.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the presentation.
Streamer.
That's it, guys. A nice, quick, and easy one. Any final thoughts of the episode? Anybody? My final thoughts are, fuck bitches, get money.
That's mythology,
Go ahead, Bree.
philosophy.
Does the Loch Ness is it a happy ending?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Old Yeller, but with dinosaur.
It's a good movie.
dinosaurs.
Ted Danson's really good in that movie. Like I had it on video as a kid, and it was like critically panned, but it's one of those movies that's just like, for me, it's really nostalgic because I watched it a lot.
Have you seen? Have you ever seen the Yeti movie with Meatloaf?
No,
No,
that
but
sounds
now
great.
I need to watch that.
It's terrible, but
Yeti
it's like a kids.
Meatloaf,
It's like a
I'm
kids
in.
movie. It's called To Catch a Yeti. I just remembered. It has
Kari,
Meatloaf
you
in it.
remember that? Meatloaf is Kari's
I like
extra meat.
Meatloaf. I like Meatloaf.
I love Jim Steinman. Anyway, Steinman, John Steinbeck. Anyway, real quick, speaking of movies, my show's back to being a little more regular. Not for Everyone podcast. This summer's theme, we're covering flop buster videos. So it's any kind of summertime box office flop.
Ooh, love
And that
it.
doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad movie, but that is the
Battleship.
theme of this summer. Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. We just did Hudson Hawk, and we're about to drop an episode on Waterworld with Kevin Costner,
Ooh,
Hey,
which
Bobby.
I do not hate.
Did you guys watch
Volcano
that movie?
with Tommy
On-
Lee Jones.
Ooh, Dante's Peak.
Well, no, Dante's Peak was the critical success because they both released at the same time. Volcano is the one that kind
It's like
of
Deep
flopped.
Impact and Armageddon. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think all those movies
Sorry.
made money, though.
They made money, but they weren't. Yeah.
What is it?
Is it
fucking
about that time?
Yes, your final thoughts, Kari. I guess for your
My-
final
My
video.
final
Oh,
thought
what Bree?
is
What Bree? Sorry, Bree. Go ahead.
Fuck, I can't find the name of it. I was gonna ask you if you guys watched that movie on Netflix about the sharks recently.
No,
It's like a recent movie, like within the last year.
no.
Is it
that's a movie with
did the
sharks.
Meg 2 already come out?
Like they go, it's like they're a bunch of chicks or whatever, but they're
Ugh.
diving in Mexico to the underwater Mayan caves. So that was like when the Mayans went underground. You know how like we recently discovered that the Mayans were a lot deeper than we thought. So it was
So
like,
is this before the sea level rise? It must
this
have
is after. No, it's like current day. So it's like current day in Mexico. They go diving down to where the ancient Mayan caves were and catacombs of the Mayans.
Cenotes.
That
is what
sounds
they're
good.
called.
It's on Netflix, and we don't know the name of it. We can find out.
Yeah, we'll find
And
out.
it's like it's crazy because like the sharks are just like fucking gigantic, but because they basically like were birthed and like lived in the caves, they don't see like normally see. So like even the fish, they're basically like blind.
They're like moles.
I think Enzo found it.
moles.
Did
Is
Enzo
it
find it?
47 meters
down,
I don't
uncaged.
fucking know, but I was like, what the I thought it was gonna be an awful movie, and I watched it and I thought it was pretty good.
Ooh, okay.
I was like,
All
okay.
right.
check it out.
All right, Kari, it's your moment to shine.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed my first captaining of Robbie's Cryptid Corner. It was a lot of fun. So, as usual, I have a clip to end the show. This one talks about how we're always kind of going on about like the proliferation of information and technology and whatever. And I saw a video today of a guy talking about it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to end the show with that because that's a pretty interesting thought. So if you guys want to say goodbye, we will end the show.
Goodbye, and let's see if this is worth the watch.
Thanks.
I'm excited.
These people.
Human brain is such a marvel. It's amazing we can even like recall anything in 2023. We are consuming content nowadays at like Mach fucking 3 speed. I feel like I watched more videos last week alone than like someone born in like the 30s watched in their entire lifetime. It's like not even good content either. I'm on TikTok watching like 2 white guys podcast about like if Drake's actually a good rapper, and the bottom half of that video is like mobile gameplay footage, and you're like, well, when did we decide that was the baseline for our attention span? It's gotten really bleak. And the other thing is like we just know too many people now. Like 30 years ago the average guy knew like 9 motherfuckers, and now it's like I'm watching like stories of like someone I haven't seen since high school. I know the name of their dog, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that's why you had some weird dreams last night. It's because you were watching like someone's post about how their grandpa passed away, and you're like, how do I even know this person again? And you're like, oh yeah, we went on like 2 dates 4 years ago. It's a mess. The filing cabinet of our head is full. It's going to explode. And it's like, look, all I'm saying is if you walk into a room and you're like, why'd I come in here again? Don't beat yourself up and feel like you have some kind of rare brain disease. You don't. You just watched like 16 different Instagram stories in the time it took you to go to the bathroom.